So 4 months into retirement, 2 of those months in Thailand, 1 of those months, 3 weeks, on Turtle Beach. So, of course, I've been thinking a lot about all the retired people I've ever met in my life and comparing my 1 month of retirement in my dream beach to theirs. And I've been thinking about this guy. I met him in 1981. I was traveling with a young man who was walking across America to raise money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. He was going to walk all the way across America from Sacramento to Washington, D.C., and I was with him for the first 3 months of the trip from Sacramento to Lordsburg, New Mexico, 20 miles a day. And I was his driver and medic and public relations executive. And I drove a Jeep that was full of camping gear and dehydrated food and press releases. And I'd go 20 miles a day. That's how far he could walk every day. And whatever I found at 20 miles, that's where we spent the night. And if I could, I'd get us free lodging someplace, or we'd sleep in a pup tent by the highway. So we're coming down through Big Sur, which is a big nature preserve in Northern California. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful, surreal Narnia kind of landscape, enormous redwood trees. And there's just 2 lanes of highway going through the middle of it. And halfway through the forest, there's this wooden structure, this big old ramshackle hand-built place. And it's a lodge. It's a lodge popular with hippies. And it's got this crew of young women in dashikis, and it was pre-dreadlocks, but they were, peasant dresses and barefoot and smoking pot all day long. And they worked there, and the guy who owned the place was this big, larger-than-life Santa Claus kind of character, big barrel chest, broad shoulders, big white beard, very Hemingway. And he spent all day knee-deep in this river that ran behind his lodge while the women did all the work. And it was about 30 to 50 meters wide, this river, and only knee-deep. And the bottom was covered in polished, smooth river stones. And this guy spent all day out in the river, knee-deep, like I said, stacking stones, one atop the other, making these pyramids of stones. And he had about 100 of them out there the week I was there. And it looked like a Utia, these spires sort of randomly scattered, some of them half falling down. Of course, the river would eventually wear away the base of all of these structures, and they would tumble into the water, and he would come along and with other rocks build other structures. And that's what he did all day long. And one day, after he was done in the evening and Lou was finished walking, we were in the dining room, and I could see by his interactions with these women that this old man kind of had a harem. There was one sleeping space. There were a bunch of guest cottages, and there was a restaurant/bar, and there was one kind of dormitory, one sleeping space where he slept with all these women. Good on him. And I asked him, I was just making conversation, and I asked him, is it a lot of work to run a place like this? And he said, work? I'm retired. I haven't worked in years. And I think of that now. I found my little bit of Narnia. I found my little surreal environment. But I need something to keep me busy. I need to find a hobby. Otherwise, I'm just going to spend every day on the beach with a garbage bag picking up trash. So that's the project. Look for something to occupy my time on Turtle Beach in my retirement. Other than that, retirement's going great. Thanks for asking.
And here we have a strange mixture of East and West. Ancient, colorful ceremonies side by side with the most modern mechanical improvements. You would feel at home here, as I do, for the Siamese are a friendly, happy people. It is my good fortune to dwell among these people and to share their lives. And I am happy to be selected as your guide for the unfolding of some of the magnificent and spectacular ceremonies which you will witness in these films.
Well, 3 weeks on Turtle Beach, and it's time to answer viewer mail. Ty in Chiang Mai asks, do you plan any traveling? No. And I appreciate your interest, Ty. Thank you so much. But no, that's kind of the point. I've dreamed for years and years and years of finding a little pokey town on the Andaman coast and settling down here. I'm done traveling. There's nothing else I want to see. I want to get to know about 30 miles of coastline, about 10 miles inland, and just that. I want to get to know every single person in this little bit of the world. I want to get to know every little shop. I want to get to know how you get internet to a cinder block row house in the middle of a rubber plantation, because that's the house I found to rent. You know, I want to know how you find your way around when there's no signage on the roads in English at all. You know, and you have to go to the hospital, let's say, real quick. Or you just need to go buy something for dinner. You've run out of fish sauce, whatever. I want to get to know my Mayberry, my Asian Mayberry, my Lake Wobegon. I want to get to know this place. I have no interest in traveling. I went down to Phuket to get my visa arranged, and a story for another time. But while I was there, it was driven home to me how I could never, ever, ever live on Phuket again. That place was paradise back in the 80s. And there were guys there then saying, oh, this place was paradise in the 60s. You missed the golden era. The golden age was the 70s. You know, there were already guys there saying how much the island had been ravaged by tourism. But now, my God, there's nothing left. There's nothing there that I remember. And I have friends there who took me out very kindly, who let me sleep on their sofa, took me out for meals. And they still enjoy it. But I sort of feel like Ray said, they're the frogs in the pot of boiling water. They're just used to it being boiling. You know, they took me to a place called McFly's on Rawai Beach. Great little bar, got a pool table, got a great big tree growing up out of the middle of it. And it's one of the few places, you know, Rawai Beach is one of the places on Phuket that has survived COVID virtually unchanged. There's no empty shop fronts, or very few empty shop fronts comparatively. And part of that, I think, is because they've always had beachside dining. They've always been right on the water. And outdoor dining, I think, was allowed to continue. And that's why you saw a lot of restaurants put card tables out on the sidewalk real quick. But they've always, dining has always been outdoors on Rawai Beach. So the beach is still thriving, I think, relatively well. So we went to this bar called McFly's, and a bunch of old Farang guys in there. I mean, the median age was 70, and a lot of white hair and wrinkly faces. And the owner, they introduced me to the owner. He was a guy named Steve, and he was wearing exactly the same shirt I was, a sky blue polo shirt, a little polo player. You know, 3 buttons, little polo player, sky blue. Exactly the same shirt, a guy named Steve. From where I'm standing right now, I'm about, 100 meters from the beach in an old disused longboat manufacturing facility. These are forms, these are fiberglass forms in which they lay out the wooden planks to create a longtail boat. But they haven't done it here, obviously, for years and years and years. You could go 50 miles in any direction and not find anybody named Steve. You could go 50 miles and not find anybody dressed the way I'm dressed. I mean, that's what I want. And it's going to take a few days to do my visa. And Ray said, why don't you stay on Phuket? Why go back to Turtle Beach just to come back down to get your passport? And I said, no, 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 no. I'll make the trip. I don't want to spend any more time on Phuket, which is sad because I've written tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of words in praise of Phuket. I'm at least partially, in some small way, responsible for the degradation of Phuket because I used to write things, in Tourist Magazine, what's on, where to go. Used to write brochures for the Tourism Authority of Thailand. Used to write for Phuket Magazine, Phuket Gazette, in praise of Phuket. There's at least one person I know who has said that he retired to Phuket because of reading my column in the Nation newspaper back in the 90s about Phuket. So I have to own that. I have to say, yeah, I'm as responsible as anybody else for that. But my penance is not going to be spending any more time on that island. Let me tell you a couple jokes. And again, these are the jokes I'm allowed to tell in this age. So a little girl comes into the bakery and she says, Mommy found a fly in the raisin bread. And the baker says, well, bring back the fly, I'll give you a raisin. Imagine, if you will, a man goes to work like me, 25 years, goes to work every single day, shows up at 9 o'clock in the morning every single day, 52 weeks a year for 25 years, and one day he doesn't show up until 10 a.m. And he comes into the place and he's battered and bruised and bleeding. His nose is broken, his eyes are blackened, he's got a broken tooth, he's got a split lip, he's got a cauliflower ear, his clothes are disheveled and torn, he's cradling his left arm, he's walking with a limp. And the boss says, what happened to you? The guy says, I fell down a flight of stairs, I almost died. And the boss says, so this took an hour? I just never, ever, ever get tired of it. Never. Never, ever, ever get tired of it.
Thailand, once called Siam, north of Malaya, east of Burma, west of Indochina. Thailand, outpost of democracy in Southeast Asia, bastion of freedom in this world of ours.